Hi, welcome to Nurse Chats. I'm Marybeth Van Horn. Today's subject, are you a hero? I've been a nurse for 45 years and a lot of talk today about nurses being heroes has made me think a lot about my career and about what makes a hero. Um, I was telling somebody the other day I was in an intensive care unit working one day, and in those days the shifts were 8 hours, but we ended up working 10 often. And we only let visitors come in for 5 minutes every hour in those days. So uh, every hour, these people came in to see their loved one. And after about 9 hours of coming in and seeing me just busy, 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 we would try to get the patient settled down and tidied up for their family visit every hour. And we were very busy, but I remember a family member saying to me long about the ninth hour, do you do this every day? I mean, and I was looking down because I was doing something. And I said, oh yeah, sure, yeah, of course. And I finished what I was doing and I looked up, and it was the wife of the person who was in the bed. And she had tears in her eyes. For me, I guess. I don't know. I remember that. And I remember thinking that it didn't even occur to me that it was some sort of a heroic thing to be there. We dealt with some of the very first ever transplants, the first ever of a lot of things. We were the pioneers in many, many, many things in those days. And then, of course, when the AIDS epidemic came along, we were very frontline, as they talk about today. But that also refers, the front lines obviously is a military reference, but my dad was one of my biggest heroes, and he was in World War II. But what made us a hero? What makes anyone a hero? You think, when you think of hero, you think of saving lives, right? And let me tell you this. In a very famous book, it says that resurrecting the human spirit is one of the greatest miracles. And it talked about like resurrecting Lazarus from the dead. But then what did Lazarus do after he rose from the dead? And how did he approach life when he was given a second chance? Anybody who's had a near-death experience has talked about, how it changed their life in one way or another. But most people I hear that have had a near-death experience have been grateful that they had another chance. Being a hero means being an example in my life. My dad was a great example to me, just because he got up every day and did what he did. They say that the mark of integrity is what you do when no one's looking. And that makes sense to me, because that's what the daily things that we do, and the daily grind, if you will, and how you approach that and how you deal with that matters. It's going to help you when the times get tough, right? What your natural response is when the times get tough is forged on a daily basis. So several years ago, my husband and I were in an auto accident, and 3 teenagers were killed. There were 8 teenagers in this particular vehicle that was involved in this accident. We were on one side of the road. The driver of that vehicle was on the other side of the road, and was coming head on to another driver next to us. So 2 cars on the one side of the road, the other car overcorrected on a turn and was coming directly at the car next to us. That impact came into our vehicle, and we spun around, I think 360 degrees, but we ended up in the opposite direction. And immediately, my husband and I jumped out of the car immediately. My husband said, "Just hold on, because I might be injured." But my first reaction was to just jump out of the vehicle, run over there, and what we call triage. Make sure what we're looking at here. And I remember, helping with the injured people. My husband and I heard screaming from the other vehicle. We ran to the other vehicle. There was two children in that vehicle, and a dog and the mama. And the mom was trapped in the vehicle. So we removed the children from that vehicle and got them to safety, and the dog as well. We were on the news and a variety of things, and people have called us a hero. I can't tell you how many people have come up to me over the years, and that's many years ago that happened. But I still see people who say, "Hey, you were the lady in that accident, and you saved those people." My husband did too, and probably more so than I did. My first inclination was to triage, to stabilize, and to pray. That's just who I am. My husband, more so, dug in and literally lifted a boy out of the wreckage and saved his life. I don't know that we're heroes as much as we just did what we do, And I think if you ever saw the series on Netflix about the Medal of Honor, those recipients, they are always humble, and they're always saying it was my team, it was my my troop, it was everybody. It wasn't just me. I just did what I do, and they didn't see it as anything special. It's just what they do, right? So during this time when I am in isolation, quarantined, what are we doing when no one's looking? That will serve as an example to somebody, because in one way or another, we're observing each other. We're observing how we're reacting to things. We're observing the stick-to-itiveness that it takes to get through this. Our grandkids are watching us. Our kids are watching us. Our friends are watching us. Whatever it is, whatever is coming out of our mouth is an example of how we are day to day. I'd say all the time, it doesn't take long to know what a person's about when you start talking to them. Their language says what they are. It eventually, sooner or later, and fairly quickly, comes out as to what basically is your day-to-day mentality. And I will say this, you can change. If you have some things that you'd like to change, this is a time to think about that, journal about it, pray about it, whatever your means are that help you change the things that aren't working for you. I would say tap into those means. Reach out, not in. Because the up here, that little noggin has, at least in my case, its own little committee. So when I reach out and journal or call someone or pray or whatever it is that I need to do to stop that train of thought, I will. There was a time when I think I mentioned before that my husband was dying of cancer, and he had cancer for many years. And one night, I was just beside myself. I mean, seriously, I was retching in pain in my gut because I was in that much stress. And I got up and grabbed one of my quick prayer books, just a quick, reader. And in the prayer book, it said, as if it was God speaking to me, saying, don't you know that if this weren't for your greater good, I'd remove it immediately? And then the next few lines later said, refuse to worry. Now, refuse is a very strong word, and I've used it a lot since then. I refuse. I refuse to give in to whatever it is, worry, grief, name it, okay? Refuse to do it. And then how do we do the flip side? You say, okay, how do I change this? I can start humming right now. I can sing. I can write a note to somebody. I can get on people are getting on, social media all the time now. Or pick up the phone and tell someone how much you love them or how amazing they are. You know, A Course in Miracles says if you knew the story of the person sitting next to you, you would know what a miracle they really are. Every one of us have miraculous tendencies because of one thing or another that we've overcome in our lives. So I encourage you today to think about how you're a hero, because you are. Getting through this is heroic. And even though you don't think you're doing much, sitting in your home alone or with your kids and quarantined or whatever it is that you're doing, what you think about comes out of your mouth. So if you're encouraging people, you're a hero. End of story.